Hi everyone. It's been, well, an interesting season on Broadway, to say the least. With a somewhat measly 34 productions opening this year, we were taken on a roller coaster featuring everything from Iowa Debris making her Broadway debut in Proof, to Kristen Chenoweth doing whatever it is she was doing in The Queen of Versailles, to Rob Blake Magic with special guests, The Muppets. But we're not here to talk about those shows because we're here to talk about the 24 shows nominated for Tony Awards. This year, I was able to see 21-ish of these shows, leaving just 3 I missed out on. Little Bear Ridge Road nominated for Best Play, Waiting for Godot up for Best Supporting Actor for Brandon J. Durden, and The Fear of 13 up for Best Lighting and Sound Design. Little Bear Ridge Road and Waiting for Godot I couldn't get to because I studied abroad in London in the fall. The Fear of 13, well, I just have no interest in that show. Sorry. There are also 2 more shows that I sort of saw, but I'll explain that at the end of the video. For now, let's go through everything I saw from best to worst, noting which awards I think each show deserves along the way. At number 1 is Becky Shaw, up for Best Revival and Supporting Actor for Alden Ehrenreich. This was my favorite play of the season, and I would easily give it both. Gina Gianfrido's black comedy is, on the surface, about a bad blind date, written with vicious one-liners that blindside the audience with laughs. But underneath her words are 5 people who just don't understand how to love, and honestly, who does? It was the funniest thing I saw all season, but also the one I still think about to this day. Beautifully acted by the ensemble, shaped by the top-notch director Trip Coleman. I really hope Alden wins supporting actor, and that he stays in theater and doesn't do like Weapons 2. This should be up for way more awards in my opinion. I want more attention to be given to Madeline Brewer's portrayal of the title character. It's such a difficult, tightly wound and delicately balanced part, and she nailed it, especially in that one scene with Patrick Ball, which I will not spoil. He was also terrific, by the way. He does this one like half skip thing in a scene near the end that was so unexpected but perfect. But all this is to say that I don't understand why Trip Coleman didn't get nominated. After Cult of Love last year and Becky Shaw this year, genuinely what does he need to do to get some recognition? Cats the Jellicle Ball is up for Best Revival, Direction, Featured Actor, Set, Costume, Lighting, Sound, Choreography, and Orchestrations. I would give it Revival, Direction, Costume, Choreography, and Orchestrations. This was the best musical I saw this year. Jalen Livingston and Bill Rauch's revolution of ALW's feline musical is the best party on Broadway, populated by Broadway's best ensemble. You could create a separate category for best performances in Cats Jellicle Ball with like 10 nominees and still have people snubbed for a nomination. Queen Jean's costumes are an absolute masterpiece, and the reinvented orchestrations somehow make this already incredible score even more of a banger. Even though I have a few issues with parts of Cats, such as the pretty muddled sound design and the confusing staging of Old Dude's kidnapping, I think Jalen and Bill's complete reinvention and reclamation of Cats earns them the Best Director award. They took this really good concept and expanded it into a love letter to ballroom and a really fantastic musical. Marjorie Prime is up for Featured Actor and Actress. I thought that Jordan Harrison's play, which was at Second Stage in the Winter, was just really lovely. A small-scale look at artificial intelligence, humanity, memory, and love that was wonderfully directed by Anne Kaufman, returning after helming the play's first New York production off-Broadway in 2015. AI is definitely more of a prescient topic now than it was then, and I like that Jordan's play grounded this high-tech topic in the humanity of his 4 characters. June Squibb was really great as an impish Marjorie as she interacts with an AI avatar of her dead husband, and Danny Burstein really deserved his nomination as well. But my personal favorite performance from this play, and one of the year's highlights, was Cynthia Nixon, who was mesmerizing. Staring into her eyes, you just felt the weight that her character had been carrying around for years and years. An incredible performance. Liberation is up for Best Play, Direction, Leading Actress, Featured Actress, and Costume Design. I would give it Best Play and Costume Design. Best Wolves Liberation is half a gym basement play about female consciousness raising meetings in the 70s, and half a theatrical experiment where Bess herself tries to reconstruct her deceased mother. It's a really engrossing time with a dynamic cast of 8 and a deeply touching ending. Susanna Flood and Betsy Idem, the 2 actors who at the end play daughter and mother, were both nominated for Tonys, which I was really glad about. I'm not gonna lie though, by the end of Liberation, I was a little worn out by, well, I don't think there's another way to put it, but the play's unrelenting millennialism. Sorry, but I don't know, that's just how I felt. It's a worthy choice for Best Play, even though I don't think it places in even my top 5 plays from last year. I'm giving Queen Jean the Tony for costumes, which is probably a little bit of my goodwill spilling over from the Jellicle Ball, but I thought her costumes were excellent and created one of the best stage pictures of the season of the entire ensemble dressed in jaw-dropping denim. Death of a Salesman is up for Best Revival, Direction, Score, Leading Actor, Featured Actor and Actress, Set, Lighting, and Sound. I would give it Best Director, Featured Actress, Lighting, Set, and Sound. The Scott Rudin Show. I do think this will end up winning Best Revival, which is a bit ridiculous, especially considering Becky Shaw is right there. But Death of a Salesman is a really good revival. Joe Mantello's psychologically piercing staging casts a shadowy light on Arthur Miller's words, bringing us into the mind of Willie Loman, in a great performance by Nathan Lane. I'll give Laurie Metcalf the supporting actress Tony because she was spectacular, obviously, but just know if Cynthia Nixon were on this list, it would go to her. Because the set doesn't change, other than the car, Jack Knowles does a lot of heavy lifting with his lighting and denoting all the flashbacks and scene changes. Chloe Lanford's pillars, dust, and car make a great atmosphere, complete with hidden lifts to make everything a bit more mysterious. Mikhail Suleiman's echoey sound design really works as well, especially with the piercing voice of Tasha Lawrence as the woman that seems to come from everywhere at once. I am considering going again. I saw it still in previews, but that was for free, and I don't know if I want to throw money at this production. Oedipus is up for Best Revival, Direction, Leading Actor and Actress, Lighting, and Sound Design. Oedipus is probably the play I have the haziest memory of on this list. I'm not entirely sure why. I saw it in the beginning of February, so it wasn't that long ago. Maybe it was because of my somewhat faraway seat in Studio 54, or because it was a matinee and the second of 4 shows I saw that weekend. I'm not really sure, and this placement is kind of the most tenuous of them all, but I do think I liked it as just 2 hours of engrossing drama, with great acting led by Leslie Manville as Oedipus's wife, Jocasta, who Robert Icke gives greater agency and control in his adaptation. For some reason, the one image I still remember from Oedipus is of Antigone, played by Olivia Rice, stepping over a carpet that was being rolled up by some workers. I have no idea why this one picture is crystal clear to me, but it was the perfect representation of a woman unsure of her future and having her floor lifted up beneath her. Ragtime is up for Best Revival, Direction, Leading Actor twice, Leading Actress, Featured Actor and Actress, Costume, Lighting, Sound, and Choreography. I would give the Leading Actor Tony to Joshua Henry and give this show Best Sound as well. This may seem somewhat low for Ragtime, which has been touted as the best revival since Sliced Bread, and exactly the musical that America needs right now, whatever that means. But I've been hedging my hype of Ragtime ever since I saw it. I feel like it's been long enough and it's not even a controversial opinion anymore, but Leader DeBessonet's direction is just not good. It's a decently ugly show and one that makes little use of the unique Vivian Beaumont stage. Also, you might want to look at who's listed as a creative consultant on this production, because maybe his name should also be on the list of nominations for this show. But Ragtime is still one of the most musically epic things to hit Broadway this season, helped by the extraordinary orchestra and the cast led by the singular talents Joshua Henry and Brandy Neurenowitz. Honestly, I would be fine with either of them winning the award, but it's been Joshua's to lose for about 2 years now. Titanique is up for Best Musical, Book, Leading Actress, and Featured Actor. I would give it Best Musical and Book. Obviously, Titanique is not an ideal Best Musical winner. It's a jukebox musical that takes from pre-existing IP, but it was the best time I had in a new musical on Broadway this year. I think what makes Ty Blue, Constantine Russoli, and Marla Mandel's book really great, beyond the hilarious jokes, is that it takes the parody beyond just Celine Dion narrating Titanic. It's also Drag Race and Rose's Turn from Gypsy, and a show-stealing Leighton Williams as a Tina Turner iceberg. They really took the source material and made it into a wholly new thing, as opposed to another musical later in this video that really didn't elevate the source of its parody. But even though I love this a lot and would be glad to go back, I definitely wouldn't vote for it over like Dead Outlaw and maybe Happy Ending from last year. I might even vote for Buena Vista Social Club and Death Becomes Her over this. So yeah, pretty bad year for new Broadway musicals. Fallen Angels is up for Best Revival, Leading Actress twice, Set, and Costume Design. I'm not gonna lie, the first act of Fallen Angels, one of Noel Coward's fabulous farces, is somewhat anemic. But then, the curtain rises on Act 2 and Kelly O'Hara and Rose Byrne, 2 of our finest actors, start drinking champagne. And from that moment, Fallen Angels suspends its audience in a rare comedic delirium that only gets funnier as the 2 get drunker. They're truly sensational. Kelly goes from understated and regal to completely unraveled, clutching onto a railing for any semblance of stability. Rose is an absolute smash hit, especially with her sliding voice. Just keep an ear out for how she says the name Maurice. The rest of the cast is great too, always great to see Christopher Fitzgerald, but it's Rose and Kelly's turn here. Giant is up for Best Play, Direction, Leading Actor, and Featured Actress. I would give John Lithgow the Leading Actor Tony. Mark Rosenblatt's Giant, which explores children's children's book author Roald Dahl's anti-Semitism controversy, is a somewhat middling play, but excellent character study. Dahl is the only one in full focus here. Everyone else, including nominee Aya Cash's Jesse, is only blurrily defined. But John Lithgow's Dahl is an epic figure, a 6'4" baby who finds delight in taunting the people around him. I'll say this about another performance later, but what makes Giant so watchable and Lithgow so terrifying is how unpredictable he is. You never know where this giant is going to step next, or more accurately, who he's going to step on next. I love Lithgow's performance, and I hope he does win the Tony. The Balusters is up for Best Play, Direction, Featured Actor and Actress, and Costume Design. David Lindsay-Abair's newest play is a pretty funny piece about the low-stakes squabbles in a suburban neighborhood association, but that's just about it. Pretty funny. I just thought his characters were surprisingly shallow for a playwright of his caliber, especially Anika Noni Rose's Kira, who's given little motivation for pushing for a stop sign beyond general notions of safety. I also think it's slightly criminal that Kenny Leon was nominated for his flat, uninteresting direction of this play, complete with Kanye West scene transitions for God knows what reason. I do think Mary Louise Burke and Richard Thomas deserve their Tony nominations, and I would like to shout out Maria Cristina Oliveras as the sharp-eyed housekeeper Luce, and Michael Esper as Alan, who has a pretty terrific monologue about being a white man in the age of woke. Though I'm not sure what that says about David that he was the best written character. Schmigadoon is up for Best Musical, Direction, Book, Score, Leading and Featured Actress, Set, Costume, Lighting, Sound, Choreography, and Orchestrations. I would give it Best Score and Sarah Chase the Leading Actress Award. Schmigadoon is a decent musical. Cinco adapts his television show for the stage, spoofing Golden Age musicals like Oklahoma and Carousel and Brigadoon, obviously. There's a delightfully picturesque set by Scott Pask, a whole host of supporting characters, and of course, a pattern number. What it doesn't have is a lot of depth or heart. In contrast to Titanique earlier, I find Schmigadoon to be a pretty lazy parody of those classic musicals that never does more than just imitate. The remade lyrics are great and often really well rhymed, but the melodies are just rehashes. I'm still giving it Best Score because it's such a bad year for new scores, but just know I find the score pretty lackluster, and it's also kind of criminal that it's even eligible for a new score. The best part of Schmigadoon is Sarah Chase, who infuses her Melissa with an insane amount of depth that the script never gives her. The song she has in Act 2 is a tremendous moment, and I think she would be a more than deserving Best Actress winner. Richard O'Brien's The Rocky Horror Show is up for Best Revival, Leading Actor and Actress, Featured Actress, Set, Costume, Lighting, Sound, and Choreography. The Rocky Horror Show is another show on this list that is very, very fun, yet somewhat dramatically hollow. Maybe I would have gotten swept away more had I seen the movie first, but without that preparation, I was literally so confused during this show, especially in Act 2. I think Sam Pinkleton's production, while designed really well with scenic by Dots and costume by David Reynoso, just doesn't have enough of a perspective on the show. It feels kind of basic and by the books, and it also has some pretty bad performances in here that should have been reworked. I know there's been a lot of discourse about the audience participation, but at my showing it worked really well, thanks in large part to Rachel Dratch as the narrator, who has the impossible task of reining in like 1,000 audience members each night and does it terrifically. Luke Evans was solid, and I'm just so glad to see Stephanie Hsu back doing theater. Funnily enough, I would kind of like to go back to Rocky Horror. It is a genuinely fun time, and I think I would follow everything maybe a bit more. Next up, The Lost Boys, which is up for Best Musical, Direction, Book, Score, Featured Actor and Actress, Set, Costume, Lighting, Sound, Choreography, and Orchestrations. I would give Ollie Louis Borzgui and Shoshana Bean the featured Tonys, as well as the show's set and lighting design. Honestly, all hail Michael Arden, because I'm pretty sure his direction is the only reason that Lost Boys was somewhat enjoyable and didn't completely bomb on Broadway. The book is scattered and weak, the score is forgettable and generic, but somehow I didn't walk out completely hating this vampire musical. The spectacle is pretty undeniable, between the aerial acrobatics and Dane Lafferty's hulking multi-story set, and the lighting design by Jen Shriver and Michael Arden. Wait, Michael Arden is a lighting designer too? What? Anyways, Ali and Shoshana are pretty great as well. Especially Ali, whose deep voice, smoldering look, and unpredictability really bring power to David. But even after all this praise, I just don't see myself wanting to revisit The Lost Boys at all, especially without the surprise of a first viewing aiding my experience. August Wilson's Joe Turner's Come and Gone is up for Best Score, Featured Actor, Costume, Lighting, and Sound. Joe Turner's Come and Gone is a spiritual, mysterious play written by August Wilson as the 1910s installment of his Pittsburgh cycle. I'm sure it's a really great play, play. I just wish it got a better Broadway production than this one. Debbie Allen's direction is just not up to the task of decoding the subtext and mysticism of this play. Long stretches of it just feel like slice of life, watching Taraji P. Henson and Cedric the Entertainer run this boarding house. And that is enjoyable, and on some level the play is about that. But I'm sure there is more going on underneath the surface. And the most important scenes with Harold Loomis, played by Joshua Boone, are staged confusingly. At least Ruben Santiago Hudson is here giving a masterclass with his monologues. Those are by far the best moments of the play. Bug is up for leading actress, set, lighting, and sound. And although it's pretty far down, I would give Carrie Coon the leading actress award. Bug is another revival on this list that was marred by some strange direction. And listen, I love David Cromer. What he did with Dead Outlaw was magical, but Bug is such a strange play. On the one hand, it's a dark, conspiracy-laced thriller, and on the other, it's kind of a love story of two lonely souls meeting and connecting. But David's direction kind of failed at getting the audience to believe in both the conspiracy and the love. I remember so many moments where he would undercut the madness by going for laughs, like he was intentionally trying to point out how ridiculous the whole Bug conspiracy thing was, which just cannot be happening in this play. The reason Carrie Coon is winning Best Actress for me is because of this page-long monologue at the very end, where she constructs this fake or real story to make sense of her life and try and rationalize all the things that happened to her in whatever way she can. That was one of the best moments of the season for me, and Carrie's force completely bowled me over. Two Strangers Carry a Cake Across New York is up for Best Musical, Direction, Book, Score, Leading Actor and Actress, Set, and Orchestrations. I do not like this musical. Two Strangers is a musical trying to be about New York, written by two British people who seem to know absolutely nothing about New York. This just makes the first act slightly insufferable as we're presented with this fantasy of New York that doesn't exist, stuffed with cliches and overgeneralizations. Dougal is an annoyingly written character that is actually unbearable for the entire first act. The second act is a slight improvement because Jim Barn and Kit Buchan write songs that actually show us the character's emotional states rather than being about Tinder on the subway. Funny how that works. And this is probably my hottest take on this show, but I don't even think it's staged well. The set is two piles of ugly gray suitcases that barely change at all. I don't even understand why this was nominated for Best Set. If anything, it's the lighting that's actually changing the look of the show. Sorry for being mean to Two Strangers, but it's okay because they're British and eat beans on toast or something. Dog Day Afternoon is up for Best Set, Costume, and Lighting. Dog Day Afternoon just feels misguided on so many fronts. This is the stage adaptation of the 1975 Sidney Lumet film of the same name about a bank robbery turned hostage situation, penned by Stephen Adly Girgis and directed by Rupert Gould. I haven't seen the original film, so I'll have to trust everyone who says it's a masterpiece of tense crime drama with strains of dark comedy. The play, however, is written and directed as a sitcom, in a bad way. There's absolutely no tension because of the amount of forced gags, which also makes the end of Act 1 turn into a Waiting for Lefty-esque audience participation moment feel completely unearned. And even worse, I genuinely think the play's treatment of the transgender character Leon is kinda homophobic. She's made into the butt of the joke as this ditzy stereotype. John Bernthal is energetic though, and Jessica Hecht makes do with what she's given. The set by David Corrins is very big and visually impressive, but the play is not good. And finally, Chess is up for Leading Actor, Featured Actor and Actress, Lighting, and Orchestrations. This revival of Chess is bad. It's bad. Danny Strong's rewritten book is completely misguided, and all his topical jokes about Trump and RFK Jr. aren't funny, and completely ruin any sort of dramatic momentum that this show could dream of building. Not that it's building much, though, with Michael Mayer's concert staging that is just so boring, and Laura Notaro's choreography, which seems to only have interest in being exciting all the time. I'm genuinely so relieved that she wasn't nominated for choreography. Sorry if this sounds mean, but this show is just bad. Hannah Cruz was great though. I'm not going to mention the other feature nomination from this show. Also, I'm just going to say it. I don't even think the score of Chess is good enough for you all to be talking about it like it's a show that ends up being enjoyable despite the terrible book. But yeah, Chess. That's the end of everything I saw on Broadway this season nominated for Tony Awards. But as mentioned before, I'm going to briefly talk about two other shows that I actually saw in London. The first is Punch, the play by James Graham that was at Manhattan Theatre Club last year. Punch is up for Best Actor in a Play for Will Harrison. The production in London was actually identical to the one in New York, just with different actors. Punch is an okay play that is a little too hectic and a little too much for 3/4 of it, making it hard for it to land emotionally. The best scene by far, and one of the best scenes of the season was when Will Harrison's character meets up with the parents of the kid he killed. The play slows down, we get to sit with these characters for a bit, and it's really, really lovely, but just for that one scene. Also, there's a character that comes out of the closet in this play, and you will literally never guess who it is, nor in which scene it happens. Truly the jump scare of the season. Second, Every Brilliant Thing up for Best Revival of a Play and Leading Actor for Daniel Radcliffe. I saw Every Brilliant Thing in London at Soho Place, a much smaller theater than the Hudson, which was truly in the round. The lead at my performance was Johnny Donahoe, who is actually the co-writer of the play itself, so he knew it inside and out and was terrific. I think it's a pretty great piece that tackles a tough subject with joy and community. I would have loved to see Daniel in it, but the rush got insane by the end. And that was the 2025-26 Broadway season. If you made it this far, thanks so much for watching. Leave a comment with your own thoughts on the season, the Tonys, anything. Subscribe for my next video, either a monthly recap or I might try and do my own nominations and awards for the season, which would also encompass off-Broadway stuff. Thanks for watching. For now, it's time for me to take a break from theater and watch, like, The Backrooms or something. Bye!